We're going to move on to the session 2 notes here. So if you guys want to close everything down and then just open up a new architectural template, we will talk about phasing. So the idea with phasing is that you can show the project at different stages in time. You can model up an existing building, you can demolish parts of it, and then you can add a renovation maybe to the exterior or to the interior. It can go either way. The first thing that we need to do to set up the phasing is go to the Manage tab and click on the Phases button. So here's the Phases dialog box. So out of the box, when you folks create a new project from scratch in Revit, all of the views that are created and all of the views that are in the architectural template have the new phase. So by default, when you get started with a project in Revit, Revit is assuming that everything is new. So we've got these two phases that exist already in the template. What I want you folks to do is just cancel, go back and look in the plan view and scroll to the bottom of the properties palette so that you can see the phase indicated. New construction. So here's the deal. Anything that gets modeled in this view takes on the phase of the view as it stands, new construction. Change the phase now to existing. You'll notice that the elevation tags disappeared because the elevation tags look at the building in the new construction phase. So there's no point in having them here if this phase is now set to existing. Draw a wall. Then cancel out and click on the wall and look at its properties. Phase created, existing. How did that happen? Well, we set the phase of the view moments ago to existing. So subsequent to that, all objects you model in this view will have the same phase as the view. So if you are going to be constructing an existing building, here's the first order of business. Now I'm just going to go back and make this new construction. So go back and make level 1 new construction again. But go into the project browser now, right click on level 1 and duplicate the view. Not as detailing, just duplicate it. And once you've made the copy of the view, rename it and call it level 1 existing. And do the same with level 2. So duplicate level 1, call it level 1 existing. Duplicate level 2, call it level 2 existing. And then in those two views that are labeled existing, change their phase to existing. Pro tip, folks, to change the properties of a view, you don't need to open the view. So here I've got my level 1 plan view open. What if I want to change the phase of these new views that I've just duplicated? Just click on them once in the project browser and you'll notice, look at the properties palette. If I don't have anything selected, the properties palette shows you the phase of the current view, which is level 1. But if I simply click level 1 existing in the browser, it shows me the properties of that view. It doesn't have to be open, but as long as it's selected in the browser, I can come over here, look at this, level 1 existing, and I can change its phase to existing without opening the view. So now we have a level 1 existing floor plan and a level 2 existing floor plan. Go into your level 1 existing floor plan and just draw a box of walls. Once you've drawn that level 1 existing box of walls, go to your level 1 floor plan and see what you get. The walls appear gray. I'll talk about it in a second. Talk about that, what's going on. What I want you to do is right next to this box of existing walls, add 3 walls onto it to mimic a renovation that's being added onto it. And we'll talk about the difference in the graphics between our existing walls and our new walls. Now, you can obviously see that there is a graphical difference in presentation between the two of them. How is this working? Let's go back to the Manage tab and look at the Phases dialog box again. So clearly we have some existing walls and we have some new construction walls. How is Revit facilitating this process? Well, let's go to the Phase Filters tab. And in your notes, let's go to page 2 and about halfway down the page. Phase Filters. Now, one of the things that's good to note at this point is that these columns here have specific meanings when it talks about new and existing. And you can have a look at those definitions halfway down page 2 with bullet points. New, existing, demolished, temporary. So what Revit calls new in this dialog box means an object that's been created in the same phase as the current view. So right now, I'm in the level 1 plan view. Its phase is set to new construction. And this wall has its phase created, same thing, new construction. Whereas this wall here from the existing phase was from a previous phase in the Phases dialog box. So when we look at the phasing dialog, there it is there, existing and new construction. Now, the names of the phases are arbitrary. They're up to you. Just watch. Here, I'm going to change existing and I'm going to call it ye old. There you go. So I've renamed the phase. So it's called it ye old building. And I can call this one Phase 1. So it's not really the names of the phases that matter, it's which one is first. So row number 1 you can see is the first phase. Now because we've renamed the phases here, when you guys exit out of the dialog box, you'll notice that down here, see, phase says Phase 1. Because I just renamed it. And I go back and click on this wall and it tells me that it was created in the ye old phase. Now I'm not fishing for laughs here. What I'm trying to get across is that when you go into the phasing dialog box, new and existing here on this first tab, don't get that conflated with new and existing here. It's just names of phases. What new and existing means is that we have an object from a prior phase, from an earlier phase, that's visible in this view. So this means that these walls here are from an earlier phase, and they show up here, and Revit shows them gray. And here's why. On this Phase Filters tab, the default view in Revit, when you guys make a floor plan, is row 1. So each plan in Revit has a phase that it's associated with, and it has a phase filter that you can change. So here in this level 1 view, if I switch it from show all to show complete, look what happened. The walls all look the same. You can't tell which is existing and which one is new. They look exactly the same. So what's the deal? Well, back in the phasing dialog box, when we go to the phase filters tab, show all does this. It takes walls that have been created in the current phase. So a new wall is a wall that's been created in the same phase as the current view, and it makes it by category. What does that mean? It means the way Object Styles says it should appear. And if you guys remember from the intro course, on in the Object Styles dialog box on the Manage tab, this is where you set the line weights for your project, right? So if you think something's too heavy or too light, you go to Object Styles to sort it out. What you do not do is go to the line weights dialog box and mess with this. If you mess with this, I send Sylvester Stallone to your house. He's probably so old he can't hurt you, but he could die on your lawn and that would still be awkward. So you don't mess with this. You only do Object Styles and change the line weights there. So, back to phases. Phase filters. By category means Object Styles. But if it says overridden, what that means is Object Styles doesn't apply anymore, and then graphic overrides do. So, if something is overridden, so on the show all phase filter, if we have existing geometry in the view, its appearance, existing geometry, will not be by Object Styles. It will be overridden. And if it says overridden, you go to the graphic overrides tab and you see what Revit's going to do to it. So, existing geometry, if it's overridden in its appearance, appears 50% gray. Now, if you print in color and you're like, I don't want it to be 50% gray, I want it to be green, fine. Hit the existing row, go to the lines section here, and instead of gray, we will make it green. We aim to please. And I'll do that with the projection lines as well. So both of them, we're going to make them green. So what's going to happen? If existing geometry is overridden by a phase filter, it will now appear green instead of gray. So the gray is just the way the software is set up. You probably would not make your existing geometry appear green, but that's how it works. So, different phase filters. Show complete. New and existing are both by category, both by Object Styles. So your new and existing geometry is going to look exactly the same. Let's talk about demolished. Now, let's say in this plan here that you want to nuke this particular portion of the wall because you're putting on the renovation. So you're going to knock this wall down. You're going to remove it. Well, there is a demolish tool on the Modify tab right here. I think Marvel paid off Autodesk to have Thor's hammer in the software. So when you click on Thor's hammer here, what happens is if you click on an object with the demolish tool, it demolishes the geometry in the phase of the current view. So that's existing walls. We're in a view whose phase is set to phase 1, I believe. So it's going to demolish this existing wall. It's going to demolish the wall made in the ye old phase, and it's going to demolish it in phase 1. And that's what a demolished wall looks like. But wait a second. We don't want to demolish the whole wall. We only want to demolish that middle third of it. So what do? We're going to Control Z. We're going to use the split tool. And we're going to split that wall into 3 pieces. A piece here and a piece here. And it's only this wall here that's going to be demolished. Now, as much fun as it is to use Thor's hammer, you can actually just change the properties of the wall to demolish it. Have a look down here. So when I click on the wall, It gives me the phase that it's created in and the phase that it's going to be demolished in. There we go. So this phase filter, show all, shows new stuff, shows demolished stuff, and shows existing stuff, all graphically quite different, so that you can differentiate between what's existing and being retained, which is the gray, what's new, which is black, and what's being demolished, which is the black dashed stuff. So ordinarily it wouldn't be green, it would be gray. So this allows us now to differentiate between everything. When you want to show the client the final plan, you switch to show complete for the phase filter, and everything looks the same, and the demolished stuff goes away. Why? Let's go back to phases. So on the phase filters tab here, show complete, what does that do? New is by object styles. Existing by object styles. Demolished, gone, not shown. So in this way, you show the client the final layout of the building without the demolished stuff. So what you may want to do is to create a couple of different sets of plans in your project if you're modeling existing conditions, so that you have a demolition plan for your contractor and you have a final set of plans both for your building permit documentation and for the client to look at. So that's on the bottom of page 2. So page 3, again, that's just about the graphic overrides tab. And finally then on to page 4, talking about how views have different phases. And we talked about how objects have phases. So objects have a phase demolished and a phase created. An object that's never going to be demolished, its phase demolished will be none, as you can see down here. So some of the existing walls may of course persist into the completed stage of the project, and other parts may be demolished. So that in a nutshell is how Revit handles phasing. Let's go to page 5 and talk about it. So again, if you do have an existing building, make views of the existing building, label them as such, label the views as existing, and then you can start building up the existing building plans in these views. Let's have a bad news Monday right now. Now I'm going to close this down. Start a new architectural template here. And I'm going to start drawing the existing conditions. Now, you guys, at any point here, just yell out what I'm doing wrong. I'm modeling the existing building. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of other stuff here, and I'm going to end up spending the whole morning on it, and there's my existing building. What's the problem? Anybody? Just, what have I not done with everything that I've drawn here? I'm done. Here, look, here's the existing building. I've done the roof, done a whole bunch of other stuff. It's all the existing building. Anybody? Yeah, it's all in the new construction phase. I never actually put it into the existing phase. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go around and select everything and put it into the existing phase. You could. And you'll be like, well, have you started drawing the new building yet? And I'm going to be like, no, I was just about to start doing that. Good news. Here's what we can do. On the Manage tab in the Phasing dialog box, I haven't even drawn the real new stuff that we're going to add. So really everything that's in my new construction phase right now is really the existing phase. Right? It is. Well, why don't I just get rid of this existing phase, because doesn't have anything. So I can click on my row 2 here, combine with the previous, and now everything's existing. And when I hit OK, nobody died. This is good. Then I can go back into the phasing dialog box here and I can add a new phase after. Whew. There. Everything's fine. So you can do it that way too. So you didn't have to create all of those existing views in a way. It's still recommended that you do so, but if you have a bad Monday and you forget, it's not the end of the world. You will, of course, decide whether you want to keep your elevations as existing or whether you want to move them to the new phase. So you can see here, look at this. I can control click a bunch of views and I can change all of their phases in one go. Right? I can just select all those views in the project browser and change all their properties at once to a different phase. Okay, so on page 5 we talked about graded regions and phasing. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to page 6, and you guys are going to do an exercise here on setting up phasing.